Hi, I'm Brian Johnson, and although you probably accidentally stumbled across it and have no idea why you're watching it, you are in fact watching The Dorkening.
Hello, this is Tom Kenny, voice actor, the voice of the Ice King on Adventure Time, and SpongeBob SquarePants. Meow. Oh, Gary the Snail, too. Hey, guess what you're filling your eye holes and ear holes with? The Dorkening! Oh, I love the Dorkening. Very popular in Ooh, and Bikini Bottom.
Hi, I'm Lou Ferrigno. You're watching The Dorkening. And you know what? You don't like me when I get angry, so don't get me angry. You better keep watching The Dorkening.
This is Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman. You're watching The Dorkening. Stay tuned.
And we are now live on Splash Pages, the comic book club. With us today, my name's Leo. I'm one of the main geeks here, and we have the Velvet Joker. Rich, how's it going, my friend?
Very good, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Hi, how are you?
Good evening. And we have Chris. How's it going?
Hey, what's up?
From Radio Horror and your spectacular Spider-Man show.
And actually, the Hammer show returns next week.
Awesome. Very cool. And I'm going to get to our special guest in just a second. So tonight we're talking about the Phantom Stranger 4-issue miniseries. It was published in 1987, written by Paul Kupperberg, art by Mike Mignola. We've discussed before with Batman and Death in the Family. He's also known for creating Hellboy. Inks by P. Craig Russell. And with the Phantom Stranger, the mystic hero called the Phantom Stranger battles the forces of evil. The evil Lord Eclipso is bent on destroying Earth. Will he succeed in triggering World War III and forever blotting out the light from the world under a deadly shroud of nuclear winter? The Stranger, now powerless, tries to hold evil at bay with the help of some ordinary humans. So in 1987, the Toyota Camry went for $11K. Simpsons debuted, RoboCop, Broadway News, Moonstruck, Lethal Weapon, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, all at the theater. And with our special guest here, Mr. Paul Kupperberg, former editor of DC Comics, written well over 1,000 comic books, mainly for DC. You're known for Superman Action Comics, Supergirl, Superboy, Doom Patrol, Vigilante, Green Lantern, Star Trek. The list goes on. Including my notes changed. The revival of Doom Patrol series in 1987 and co-creator of Arion. Hello, sir. Welcome.
Hi, how you doing?
Doing great. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll kick it over to the Velvet Joker himself.
Good evening. Good evening.
Hey, Rich, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Paul?
I'm doing okay.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. So I've known Paul for a couple of years now. I met him through some of the conventions. At first, I just knew him as the Archie guy.
And I knew you as the get the fuck away from my table. You're too old. Yes. Yes.
Well, we want you. You have fragile ears. You're not a young man
I'm
anymore.
delicate. No, at my age, you have to you have to be very careful of your parts.
Yes, but absolutely. But listen, he's not to be trifled with, because he rolled up on me with a posse of old people at the party afterwards. It was scary. It was like
We beat the crap out of him with our walkers and canes. It was so much fun.
It was like the Jewish mafia. I don't know what was going on.
It was like, but it was very nice. We had coffee, cake, and tea afterwards. So it was we made an evening of it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, Leo, did you want to give the synopsis before I got with the questions, or?
I gave the synopsis. Was that?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No worries.
I'm just caught up.
I can give it again.
He doesn't listen to the show. He just appears on it.
I'm caught up in your illustrious glamour that you have, Paul. That's all.
I was caught up in the opening to this thing. This is great. Do you remember WKRP in Cincinnati?
Oh, I do. I love it.
Remember Les Nessman's introductions to his new shows? Where they just like you thought he was done, but there was more.
Yep.
That was your intro. It was great.
Sorry. I know I go on and on, but I want to make sure we cover everything. So
you did.
Absolutely. So in the story, Paul, this is following Crisis. So the Phantom Stranger is sort of reborn. He's naked in it.
Yes. He first appears naked in the story.
Right. And from what I read, your idea was you wanted to sort of bring him down and rebuild him back up to be a better Phantom Stranger.
Yeah, well, originally when I pitched Mike Carlin ended up editing the miniseries, but I originally pitched it to Denny O'Neil.
Okay.
And knowing that Denny was a lapsed Catholic, I pitched it as a Christ allegory, analogy. So, he bought it instantly. It was great. But, the idea was that he was supposed to be mankind's savior, but he was up there.
Right.
He didn't really know what made men anymore. He was off. He really was a stranger. And just the idea was to bring him down to earth, mix him up with people, and find out what they're really made of and what they're really about. The best way to do that was to remove his powers, and we had that whole Lord of Order and Lord of Chaos thing going on back then. I guess that was that. I think this was the pre-Eclipso stuff that went on later in the 80s at DC. Yeah.
Yeah, this is before they rebooted him. He was less powerful at this point.
Yeah. So, Eclipso was a great character, and it doesn't get darker than him. So.
No, absolutely. And you put a lot of stuff into it that was very prevalent at the time. You brought in the Russia versus U.S., the missile scare. Because I remember, as a kid, we used to watch videos, and they would have drills. We'd have to go under our desks, scared of all that going on.
I was doing duck and cover drills in first grade. Yeah,
absolutely.
No, that was if the idea was a story about bringing death and destruction to the entire world, I might as well use what's really out there. And we certainly had plenty of menaces. Still do.
Oh yeah. Well, we were actually talking before you came on how there's definitely
what did you say?
Well, talking about the storyline, a lot of the political undertones, and how a lot of stuff can be, it's like mirrored today. Where somebody says in the book, it's a world mixed up so crazy, and I was so scared. The Lycan offers hope. Phantom fear makes mankind pliable. And a lot of that today, a lot of people's misdirection is because they're scared.
Yeah. Well, the all that stuff. Most of the good versus evil tropes in superhero comics are, universal truths. I mean, they're pretty basic, and you've always got that kind of, cult thing going on, and somebody, whether it was Ronald Reagan or Donald Trump or Jim Jones or whatever, they're all asking you to drink some kind of Kool-Aid. It was Flavor Aid. We should be fair. It was not Kool-Aid. It was Flavor Aid. I don't know why I feel compelled to defend the Kool-Aid company, but me and the Kool-Aid kid, we go back. That's all I'm going to say.
That's right.
Yeah. So there's it's always there. It just takes it's just weaponized differently.
Absolutely. And now, Paul, on this book, this was one of the early works of Mike Mignola. How was that working with him rather? And do you feel, because he was putting your words to life and you had Hell and Cults, does he owe you a check for Hellboy or what?
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, Mike had already done some work, and he's immensely talented. Phantom Stranger was just the next step on his career ladder. If it hadn't been that, it would have been whatever else he drew next. And having Craig Russell ink it was just like frosting on the cupcake. Those guys are just they're superior artists, and I just got damn lucky to have them assigned to my book.
Nice. But now you work with some superior artists. You've worked with the legend Jack Kirby.
Yeah, working with is kind of making it sound more than it was. I mean, I wrote a script. I had no idea Jack was going to be drawing it. I know he had drawn the previous Superpowers miniseries the year before that Joey Cavallari wrote.
Mm-hmm.
But there was at no point did the editor Andy Helfer say to me, by the way, Jack is drawing this. I didn't know that until I came in one day and he tossed the art across the desk to me and said, "So what do you think?" I went, "He's okay, but his people are a little squat. What is that? And the square thumbs. What's with the thumbs?" But
everyone got their signature.
But it's just the so comics are a collaborative medium, but especially in those days, it was an assembly line, and you really didn't always know who was going to be at the next station, down the line. I remember I turned in a script to Julie Schwartz for an issue of DC Comics Presents, and when it was turned in, it was drawn by Gray Morrow.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell? You just you never knew. So it was just luck of the draw.
Were some artists, would they collaborate with you? Were they were trying to get their image and your viewpoints together?
Yeah, and I wasn't very good at that. Eric Larson on Doom Patrol tried that, and I was like, you just draw. Let me write. I don't tell you. You don't tell me how to write, punk. It just. But yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's really hard. It's like you're doing a book, you're writing a book, and in this case, Eric came on after on the 6th or 7th issue, whatever it was. When it was already established and the direction was chosen and things were working, and I wasn't a very good collaborator as far as that went. I think back in those days, though, you really didn't, just like it was very rare that the writer and the artist sat down together and worked out, certainly at DC when you're doing the full scripts, you just never knew who it was going to be. And if you did, occasionally, people would work together to get, create something new, but it was not the common way to go.
Right. Now you had Ronald Reagan fighting the Phantom Stranger. Was that a particular?
Ronald Reagan was evil.
Was that particularly fun for you?
Oh, it was great. Yes. I love that cover where you got, they didn't really delineate him. They didn't really show that it was Reagan. They kind of, fudged it a little, but Ronald Reagan, blasting away at Phantom Stranger with a machine gun. It was just like, yeah, this is America. Yeah.
Right. Now, you also brought some characters into the story that you've worked with on other stories. Like you brought in Jimmy Olsen.
Yep.
And obviously, you've done multiple Superman titles, Superboy titles.
And I did the Jimmy Olsen strip in Superman Family for a while in the 70s. So
okay, great. And then you also pulled Jim Gordon in.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, have you worked on Batman before, Paul? I didn't recall that.
Not really. I was I didn't do much Batman stuff. I did a couple of backups, Commissioner Gordon, Robin backups in Batman Family and things like that. And I dialogued a few issues of Detective for Jerry Conway, I think. And but that was about the extent of my Batman writing. And I just Commissioner Gordon was just a great everyman character of the DCU. He represented, a very specific kind of character. He was a law and order guy. He wasn't, he was used to superheroes. He was, he was a cop. He understood that, a cop who understood that the system wasn't always, gonna be the way to go. So, he was a lot of fun to write.
All right, awesome. And then, of course, you had Valentina Vostok, who was who was the Negative Woman, who you and Joe Stanton created in a Doom Patrol revival in 1977 in Showcase number 94.
Yes, we did. Yep. That was she was part of the new Doom Patrol. I brought back Robot Man from the original group, and then created 3 new characters because the other members of the group were blowed up.
Right.
In 1960, what was it, 8, I think?
Okay. I'll take your word for it.
I'm making this crap up as I go along. So.
I wasn't alive till 71, man. I don't know what to tell you.
Oh, you kids. You don't know. Why? You don't know what it was to have to read Mort Weisinger's Superman comic books. Please.
Well, you grew up in Brooklyn, correct?
Yeah.
So I grew up in Queens. So it was just like, a decade or two in between.
Yeah, but it was also Queens, which, doesn't count.
So I read you lost like the first dozen pages on your then brand new Apple II.
Yes, Apple IIc. It ate, or it was probably operator error because, it's me. But I lost like 14 pages, and had to start from scratch, and it turned out to be good because I think the second go around was a much better result. Usually you write a script and hopefully at the end you go, all right, I can turn this in. And this was one of those cases where I got to the end and I went, oh crap, I'm onto something here. This was okay. This one went okay. And it lasted for the whole, all the 4 issues, and most of the backups I did for Action Comics Weekly later on. Where, speaking of great artists, I got really lucky with like Jose Garcia Lopez and Joe Orlando and Kyle Baker and guys like that doing those stories.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I had a.
Go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
I don't remember what convention it was. It was probably Super Mega Fest, Paul, but you came to town here in Massachusetts, and I had what did I have you sign? It was the Masters of the Universe.
Remember, it was an issue of. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
It was Masters of the Universe you worked on. You worked on the original Masters of the Universe comics.
Yes.
For DC.
Yeah, I think I did the first comic incarnation.
Right.
And,
did you also work on the Superman He-Man crossover? That was the first time he appeared in a comic.
Yes, there was a 16-page insert in whatever month it came out at DC across the whatever the advertising group was.
Right.
Superman and Masters of the Universe, and or did the DC and then there was an issue of DC Comics Presents.
Right. Yep.
I don't remember which one came first, but I think it was the insert.
It's funny how everything comes full circle. I mean, He-Man's having a renaissance right now with the Origin figures and Kevin Smith's new TV series coming up.
Well, tell him to get in touch with me. No, I don't know.
I mean, if it's successful, he might want you. He's always, grabbing onto talent that's worked on stuff. Reach out to his people from your people or yourself and see what happens.
Well, I'm gonna have to get some.
Turned up He-Man to work on the show.
I sure. I'm going to get on that.
You would have a better chance of reaching Kevin Smith than any of us would.
No, I understand that. I do know people who know people, so yeah.
Right. I just put in a call to somebody I know people that know people to be like, wait a minute, why am I going about this the hard way? I know somebody who worked with this person, and I just sent them an email, and he just got back to me within seconds saying, "Yeah, no problem. Let me see if I can do this."
Yep. So.
Knights of Old says the Phantom Stranger miniseries was awesome, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you.
The Phantom Stranger is one of the top 10 superheroes that have never had his identity revealed. It's always been speculated that he's somebody, but DC has never said, Wolverine's name is James Howlett Logan. They've never said Phantom Stranger is John Smith Jones or something.
No, they back in the 80s, they did that issue of Secret Origins where they did the 4 possible origins of Phantom Stranger.
Right.
He was Judas to the Wandering Jew or something.
Right.
Sure, it'd have to be. Look at that turtleneck, please.
Yeah, they rated him up there with V from V for Vendetta's name has never been revealed.
I think that's Guy Fawkes.
The original Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe's name has never been revealed.
Well,
now
his name is Morty. He was born in Brooklyn, not Queens.
You heard it here first, folks.
Morty Stranger. His father was a deli on Flatbush Avenue.
Comic book resources. Write this up right now. Paul just revealed DC's longest running
Secret Origin of the Phantom Stranger.
Right. They don't have any other mysteries other than that and the name of V for Vendetta. So.
So you've worked with a ton of characters. What I know this is like picking a favorite child, but what is your favorite character or one of your favorite characters to work with?
Who do you want to see die?
Well, I've killed so many. Boy, it is tough. I mean, I love Superman. He is, from the beginning of my memory of comics and superheroes, Superman is there. But I think some of the best stuff I've done was on books like Vigilante and on the other end of the spectrum and the alphabet, Archie, the Life with Archie series. I think there was as I got older and more experienced in comics, I grew more and more skeptical about superheroes, guys with superpowers, because, in the whole history of mankind, no one has ever put on a costume and gone out to fight crime. Just hasn't happened. It's a fictional trope. And, the fact that people get bitten by radioactive spiders and don't die of leukemia, but instead gain the power to shoot webs out of their ass. It's a little hard for me to accept at times. So things like Vigilante, it's down to earth. It's street level stuff. After I took over the book, I had very little superheroic kind of stuff going on in it. I mean, the costumes were a necessity, but if you took these guys out of costumes and turned Vigilante into a guy wearing a ski mask, and Peacemaker, a nut with a football helmet with a radio in it, it still could have been the exact same stories. So that was appealing to me, and I got to deal with real issues, stuff I could relate to, stuff that everybody can relate to. And it was kind of the same with the Archie books. These yeah, they're cartoon characters, but they're cartoon characters designed to be real people. I mean, when I started writing these guys, it was just, I knew who they were. After a lifetime of reading the comics, I just knew who Archie was. I knew who Reggie was. I knew who Jughead and Veronica. I just understood these characters. And that's an indication that there was something there to work with. And I think in the long run, I found that stuff and did so.
You won a GLAAD award for Archie, right? For writing Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin was a novel, a young adult novel that I wrote for Grosset Dunlap. That won it was nominated for a GLAAD Media Award. I didn't win it.
Gotcha.
Knights of Old is asking, why was Phantom Stranger such a normal guy in the first series in the 1950s? Who decided to make him mystical and why?
Well, in the 1950s, he really couldn't be really mystical because the Comics Code didn't allow for that stuff. That sorcery and magic and all that, all those things were just not allowed in the comics. So it always had to be this kind of Scooby-Doo thing where, it was just some guy in a rubber mask or whatever. And then when he was brought back in Showcase in the 60s, it was originally to be a kind of a host. I think his first appearance was in a framing sequence. I think it was Mike Friedrich and Bill Drought wrote and drew it. But it was framing sequence around like horror stories, like an issue of House of Mystery or something. And then I guess it just kind of the character gradually evolved from that. But
and I also saw Crazy Magazine. I definitely need to find us. You say it's sort of like one of the better Mad Magazine type.
Yeah.
And you used to write movie parodies. What was one of your favorite movie parodies to write?
Gosh, there were so many. It was all done very much in the spirit of the Mad Magazine movie parodies. I've been throwing them up on my Facebook page. I've been putting them up every few days, putting up a story, and they're very they're very heavy-handed and Dick DeBark. I think I owe him some royalties, but I think it's hard to say. There was one Conan the Destroyer, a takeoff on that. I forget what we called it, but it was drawn by Bob Camp, who
Nice.
of Ren and Stimpy, later of Ren and Stimpy fame, and actually Bob, the very first comic book script Bob ever drew was one of mine for Crazy, but Marie Severin inked it, and she just slathered on the schmaltz. It was gorgeous. So that one's right up there.
Awesome. Now, what do you have going on now, Paul?
Well, I've got a little thing under the bridge there with a cardboard sign, and I will write for food. I've been you reach a point in the comics industry where effectively you're old and they don't want to know that you exist anymore, and I'm there, and I take it with calm and equanimity. But I've been publishing a lot of my own stuff lately. Last year I came out with 3 new books. Paul Kupperberg's Illustrated Guide to Writing Comics, a book called I Never Write for the Money, but I Always Turn in the Manuscript for a Check, which is a collection of essays and articles I've written about writing and being in comics and having been in comics and what goes on outside of my life around my writing. Then at the end of the year, I published a novel, JSA Ragnarok, which was a Justice Society of America novel that was supposed to have been published in 2005, but the publisher died and his company went bankrupt. and it's been sitting around for 15 years, waiting for this moment. But
it's definitely 2020 was. I know it was a crazy year, but we've seen a lot of that. We do another show where there was 2 movies released last year that were. One was made in 1987 and just sitting on the shelves and, finally got released. And then the other one was made in 1985, just sitting there and, finally came out both last year. So 2020 was definitely the year for it. Yeah.
Well, hopefully 2021 as well. I've got a book that I'm putting together now. It's unpublished comic book scripts.
Oh, nice.
I did one book of those in 2015, I think, of all the unpublished Superboy and Supergirl stuff that was killed by the crisis and retconning the characters out of existence. And I had 2 issues of a new comic set to launch with new directions for the characters that never saw print. So I published the scripts. And now I found some other old stuff, including a 3-part Green Lantern story called Emerald Interlude, which was originally going to be in Tales of the Legends of the DC Universe.
And now, when can we expect that book to be out?
I'm looking to Kickstarter it in the next month or so. So on that time frame and early this year.
Awesome. Well, when you get the Kickstarter going, we'd love to have you back to talk about it. See if we can give it a little boost for you.
Always happy to hype.
Awesome. And I got a bunch of information in the show notes down below or up above, depending on where you're watching or listening to us, to follow Paul and to buy his books. And I'll definitely be posting pictures. I ordered one myself today. And Rich and Chris, did you guys have any questions for the awesome, or any other questions for the awesome Paul?
No.
Look at that self-promotion machine.
There we go.
Awesome. I just wanted to thank Paul for coming on. We really appreciate it. What was that, Paul? I was chatting over you.
Always be closing.
Always be closing. Absolutely. So thank you again for coming on. We really enjoyed your time here.
Yeah. We had 2 questions come in. I'll ask them really quick if you can answer them quick. Knights of Old was asking, what was it like working with Kirby on Superpowers?
Well, like I said before, I didn't really work with him. He drew a script that I wrote before I knew he was going to draw it. But, being a lifelong comic book fan and having seen my first Jack Kirby stuff at 1961, it was a freaking thrill to share a credit box with Jack Kirby.
That's awesome. And last question, who's more powerful, Dr. Fate, Spectre, Phantom Stranger, or Etrigan the Demon?
Depends on what the story is and who's writing it.
Well, thank you for joining us, Paul. Rich, you want to give your crowbars on Phantom Stranger?
Oh, yeah. So I'm going to give it...
Oh, don't be cruel.
No, I thought I had a lot of great story. Obviously, you wrote it. And I enjoyed the Eclipso. I like the dark aspect, the cult, the demon, him losing himself and getting back in touch with his humanity. So I'm going to give it 4 crowbars.
Out of how many?
Out of 5.
Oh, all right. I'll take that.
Yeah.
And that'll leave you one to beat Robin to death with. So that's still good.
And that always puts a smile on my face.
Who doesn't love that?
Yeah. Chris, do you have a crowbar for us?
I guess 4.
Okay.
Thanks.
And I'm going to give it a 4 as well. Absolutely, as always, love the writing and definitely the story with redemption of Phantom Stranger. And it's just mesmerizing. And we talked about earlier how, it's dealing with the true human element. Absolutely loved it. And Paul, thank you again for joining us today. Absolutely.
It was a lot of fun.
And we'll let you go with the rest of your night. And we are going to run an ad for our sponsor, Deadly Grounds Coffee. We absolutely love them. Local mom and pop shop here in Connecticut. They make the actual best coffee you'll ever have. Death by Chocolate is my absolute favorite. And here's the zombie talking about coffee.
Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. There's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
And Deadly Grounds Coffee, you can find information in the show notes down below or above. And there we go. Thank you so much, Paul. You have a good evening.
You too. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And was your co-host joining us?
She should be.
Okay. Well, while we do that, I will bring up the comic issue. And for those of you watching us right now, we're going to be talking about Spectacular Spider-Man number 140. And where's my folder? I had a folder open. Okay, and do you need the link again, Chris, or are you good?
No, I'm good. Just, I don't know where she is.
Hello.
Hello, how's it going?
It's going good. I can't get my video to work though, so I kept trying to mess with it.
Sometimes you need to actually close out, like if you start up your camera, like after your web browser is open, you need to close out the browser and come back in.
Well, the biggest issue is I don't have an actual camera connected with my computer. It's all just through my phone. But since I run everything through my phone, it's just not cooperating. So,
gotcha. So you're linking your phone through your computer, or you're on your phone for everything?
It's like an IV cam type of connection. So,
okay. Gotcha. I'm not sure what the issue would be.
I mean, we can hear you.
Okay. As long as you can hear me.
You can also set up an avatar too, like the way I have.
Let's see. Where do I set that up since it's trying to do the IV cam for me?
Edit audio avatar.
Let's see. Let's see. There we go.
And then you can stick a picture in there or something.
There's a weird wailing coming from you, Chris. Is that like a fan or something?
No.
Okay.
Well, that didn't work, whatever I was trying to do. Oh, I think I figured it out. There we go. We will go with an avatar.
All right. So, the podcast, all this will be completely cut out.
Yeah, sorry about that.
It's okay. Technical issues happen all the time. And now I hear you have a synopsis to go over.
I do.
Oh, I do.
Oh, you do? Okay, I will let you have it.
Because you said you weren't sure if you were going to have it or not.
I surprisingly fit one in. So.
Oh, okay. All right. So welcome to the Spectacular Spider-Man Sal Buscema era podcast. I am Dr. Chris, your host, and joining me for this episode is the host of Goth Girl Horror, the Hack Slash podcast.
And it would be me, Charcy Lux.
And we do you do that with some complete and utter schmuck, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know how you get anything done on that podcast.
I was going to say, with a lot of help from you.
Oh, right, that's right. I do host that with you.
I've only worked with Chris a little bit on this show. Is he an utter pain to work with?
No, absolutely not.
Kind of figured.
So Charcy read the last issue 139 and issue 140, so she is up to snuff on Tombstone. She said that she's a casual fan of Spider-Man, you said?
Well, mine's mostly because of the fact, I'm such a baby when it comes to the comics that I've just been reading them for the past couple of years. And I've always had an interest in Marvel, DC, because I grew up with the cartoons. So obviously I grew up on the old 1990s Spider-Man cartoons. So it's always something that I should restart, but it's like, how many years of Spider-Man would I be going through? But it would be completely worth it.
Thank God I came along to help you in your quest.
It's just hurtful for you to say that old 90s Spider-Man cartoon.
I know. It goes farther even back, way past that. Are you ready to feel some pain when I say that when I read on this issue, it was originally published in July 1988. I was a year old.
Oh, ouch.
And we are talking about Spectacular Spider-Man Volume 1, Issue 140, published July 1988. Writer was Jerry Conway, penciler and inker is Sal Buscema, colorist is Bob Sharon, letterer Rick Parker, and editor Jim Scallop and Glenn Herdling. Editor-in-chief is Tom DeFalco, and the cover artist is Sal Buscema. And issue 140 opens with Spider-Man checking in on Robbie after the events of the last issue. He blames himself for not getting there in time. When Robbie's family leaves, he hallucinates that Tombstone is paying him a visit and whispers in his ear something. Meanwhile, Spider-Man visits a bar for information and beats up on the barflies. When someone gets the drop on Spidey, he's shot by a mysterious assailant, saving Spider-Man's life by taking a shot at Spidey to scare him away. Spider-Man goes after the Arranger, who works for Kingpin, Wilson Fisk, who, if you're currently reading comic books, is actually the mayor of New York. Isn't that funny? For information on Tombstone, but he won't give up the info. The Arranger is informed someone is gunning for Tombstone. Peter and MJ go to visit Robbie in the hospital, and he tells Peter to burn the tape of his confession of being complicit in Tombstone's crimes. As Peter and MJ leave, a mysterious shadow overhears the conversation. Peter gets a call at the Daily Bugle by Ben Urich to meet and discuss the tape. And when he shows up at Liberty Island as Spider-Man, he gets shot at, and he tackles the shooter to be revealed to be Frank Castle, the Punisher. To be continued.
Crazy.
Yes. So the cover has Spider-Man in the sniper's sights of the Punisher in front of Lady Liberty. It says rendezvous with death. Dun, dun, dun.
Now, was this Spider-Man's first meeting with the Punisher?
No, the Punisher first appeared in Spider-Man.
I know, but I didn't know if it was... Never mind. I have my timing mixed up.
Yeah, the Punisher appeared right after the death of Gwen Stacy.
Okay.
He was hired by the Jackal to kill Spider-Man because the Jackal wanted to bang Gwen Stacy, and Peter had been doing it.
Okay, I didn't know if this happened before or after. Never mind.
No, this is 1988. The Punisher first appeared again right after the death of Gwen Stacy.
Oh, wow.
That was Spider-Man 129.
Didn't realize it was that far ago.
Yeah, so, and we're currently up to issue number 301 or 302 in Amazing Spider-Man at this point.
Wow.
Charcy, have you ever read any of these Spectacular Spider-Man issues?
No, so this was the very first time.
Oh, this is like a world of weirdness to somebody first joining this, especially with the artwork, like the way it is, the angles and everything like that. There are times in this Spectacular Spider-Man book, it gets incredibly dark. I mean, we get like werewolves in here in a horrible dream sequence. The Hobgoblin's transformed into a demon. Dead characters are crawling out of the graves in horrible ways. And then we get to a really bad touch storyline later on in the run of this with some really horrible hallucinations of Peter's.
I mean, it sounds right up my alley anyways, so...
I think jumping into the panels after Peter and everyone leave the hospital, the hallucination of Tombstone. Do either one of you think it's a hallucination, or do you think Tombstone was actually visiting Robbie?
According to him, he actually found a way to make it there, so...
Yeah, and that's how I took it as well, that he was actually there.
The guy getting thrown through the window by Spider-Man is a prime example of just the way Sal draws people and expressions. And just the way Spider-Man just beats them all back is amazing. And their elongated faces of being like, get him!
And,
sorry.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
I just wanted to take back a couple issues. Not issues, but is he drawing Peter different? For some reason, Peter looks different.
No, Peter's still got that same kind of square-headed haircut.
Okay. Yeah, for some reason, he was looking different. And sorry, Sharice.
Let's see. Oh, what I was going to say is that I just love the one-liners that Peter kind of has in this too. So
they're a lot of fun. The character of the Arranger, I am not the biggest familiar with him, other than the fact that he appeared in a lot of Spider-Man books whenever Spider-Man was dealing with Kingpin-related problems. But the Arranger, whose real name was Oswald Silkworth, I think he was on the Daredevil TV series, Leo.
Really?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he was on the Daredevil TV series.
Well, they kind of hint at the fact that his boss has an obsession with Daredevil, so that would make sense.
Yes, because I think at this time, Born Again had happened recently, and Daredevil finally found a way to come back, and it was really bugging the Kingpin. His first appearance was in Marvel Team Up number 138.
Well, in this, it was definitely interesting seeing the fact that, you know, Spider-Man was very forward, gonna threaten him, and the fact that when he gets angry and he smashes that TV, I'm like, I kind of like this version of Spider-Man.
Well, Robbie's always been really good to Peter. He's never, ever once given him the crap that Jameson would normally give him. What did you think of Robbie's origin story with Tombstone the previous issue, Charcy?
Oh, with I was gonna say, because I read 140 before I did 139, because I just wanted to make sure I had 140 done. But yeah, I was kind of shocked by the origin story with Robbie, where it's like that whole idea of thinking of your childhood fears are like your worst fears, and that it plagued him for his whole entire life. And even in this issue, he still was going to do the same thing, where he, well, I mean, as we're going to talk about, is that he keeps doing the same thing and covering for Tombstone.
And in the 90s Spider-Man cartoon series you mentioned, this does play out in one episode.
Yep, I very vaguely remember. Because, I mean, this seemed familiar, even though I haven't read the comic. But yeah, now that you say that it was in the cartoon, that's probably why it seems familiar to me.
Tombstone breaking Robbie's back didn't happen, but the origin story between him and Tombstone did happen. However, Tombstone in the cartoon was black, not albino black, and he got like chemically altered to enhance his strength and stuff like that.
And I have to apologize. I realize I totally butchered your name. I need new glasses.
Oh, perfectly fine. Yeah, I go by Charcy.
This is very much, other than like the bar fight scene, this is pretty much a drama-filled issue. There's that's it. Spider-Man in the bar fight is the one fight we get. Otherwise, it's a lot of like dialogue. If you notice through the entire issue, I mean, there's no fight between Tombstone and the mutant that they are trying to break with his persuasion powers. By the way, talk about give it up for a guy who has the ability to make anybody do what he wants, and he doesn't turn out to be a rapist jackass like the Purple Man.
Yeah.
He's a good person. He might, push things here and there, but he's not coming across as being like the Purple Man.
Yeah, I definitely found that shocking.
By the way, if you go to marveldatabase.com for the Lonnie Lincoln Earth 616 profile, they actually cut back and forth between panels of the book that we're holding, the Spectacular Spider-Man animated series, and the 90s animated series versions of Tombstone.
No video game mention?
Not really.
Instead of being a normal crime boss, this version supplies the city with the many villains that Spidey has to fight, like Sandman, Shocker, and the Rhino. Tombstone does get some love in Insomniac Spider-Man game, portraying him as a drug lord that fights Spider-Man in his own set of side missions.
That I didn't quite remember, but yeah, that's true too. And of course, then he would appear in the Spider-Verse movie.
Oh yeah, yep, yeah, as Fisk's bodyguard. Yep,
correct. This is not the first time Robbie's life has been upended due to some shenanigans with a supervillain. His wife was attacked by Carnage years later, and Robbie realizes that maybe he needs to move out of New York, and he quits the Bugle, but that never sticks. But this whole storyline with Robbie and Tombstone is going to come to fruition and play out in the comic books in sometime late this month, next month, as Robbie's son, Randy, and Tombstone's daughter, the current Beetle, are dating. And I love the cover. It has Spider-Man in between. It has Robbie's daughter, Robbie's son, Randy, and Tombstone's daughter embracing each other in a lip lock. Spider-Man is standing up between them, and then the shadows above them, like big heads, is Tombstone and Robbie.
Dun dun dun.
I was gonna say, that sounds like a conflict.
So Parker gets a phone call from a mysterious figure, and he goes swinging out. I do love the way Sal draws Spider-Man swinging in the motions. You see him curling around the Statue of Liberty.
Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and I love that he had to get the help of a helicopter pilot to get over there.
Yeah.
How did he manage that? That's the number one question I had.
Spider-Man's got some connections, and he can easily, ask for a favor. Maybe he's got somebody who owes him a favor from saving their life. Hey, Spider-Man, whenever you need it, helicopter ride. Thanks, I'll take you up on it sometime. He wasn't quite tight with the Avengers like he is nowadays, so it wasn't, he couldn't just call up Cap and say, hey, I need a Quinjet ride. Anytime he needed to go long distance traveling, he would usually call probably the Fantastic Four. But he tackles the guy, and it is the Punisher. We only get like the one panel really view of the Punisher, but in the next couple issues, we're going to get to see Sal draw the Punisher, and it is pretty freaking awesome. I absolutely can't wait. All in all, this is a very short issue because of the lack of action in it.
I was gonna say you get the very short-lived fight at the end here with Punisher, but yeah, and then like you said, the bar scene.
Now the ads in this issue, which I always love pointing out, we have apple sticks and flavored candy with the Mad Magazine D. Martin artist drawing it, which I think is kind of hilarious. Info comics, some type of video game, and a preview for the upcoming multi-book crossover annual event, the Evolutionary War, which, Leo, you are more than happy to cover on the main show. Let me tell you, it is a rather boring story. I only want to cover the one annual that deals with the spider clones.
Okay, we can do that.
There's an advertisement in here for New England Comics, which is in Brockton, Massachusetts, and still located in Brockton, Massachusetts. We got some ads in here. If you want to gain some muscles in 7 days, Charcy, you can just call this phone number and they'll pump you up.
I'm pretty good where I'm at.
There's ads in here for fake lips and psychic readings and muscles, I guess.
Wow, that's kind of a difference there.
Wizards and Warriors have an ad, and the one thing I want to really point out is that this was at the time on NBC airing with Lou Ferrigno was the return of the Incredible Hulk. For the first time ever, the Incredible Hulk would fight Thor.
I remember that.
Yep, the Hulk had been off the air since I think 1981 or 82. So 6 years later, they brought him back in a series of made-for-TV movies, and this was the first one.
Justin says Tombstone is brutal and such a great villain.
Then in the back of the issue, during the letters page, we have the Salcrups section, and he talks about he's talking about all of the previous appearances of the Punisher and where you can find him in Marvel Tales. Marvel Tales was the reprint issues that they would do back in the day. They would reprint old issues of Spider-Man with new covers. And Amazing Spider-Man 129, 134, 135 were the first appearances of the Punisher. Giant Size Spider-Man number 4, issues 161 and 162, guest starred Nightcrawler, and that also had the Punisher. 174, 175 had the Punisher and his main arch nemesis, Jigsaw, who was on the Daredevil Punisher TV series in his origin before we really get him. Amazing Spider-Man 201 and 202, Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 15, where Peter has to save the Punisher's life from a poison, and Spectacular Spider-Man 81, 82, 83, which led into the Punisher's first 5-issue miniseries by Mike Zeck.
I need to find a way to get the comic ads. The issues I have don't have them.
That's fine. If you really want to read all of the early appearances of the Punisher, if you can find a copy of it, the Essential Punisher Volume 1 reprints all his early appearances and the 5-issue miniseries. That prelude, that was his first, own series, which was really cool. I really, really enjoyed that series. The Punisher got poisoned again and started hallucinating and accidentally killed a innocent person, I think.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, that's never good.
Also involved Silvermane and Cloak and Dagger. Really good stuff if you're a Punisher fan. We, of course, Leo, we seem to be covering these issues when it's relevant to what's going on in comic books, but do you want to tell the audience what's going on with the Punisher currently at Marvel?
I do not know.
Charcy, do you know?
I was gonna say I actually do not.
January 6th, what happened in Washington, D.C.?
Oh, okay, with the riots, yeah.
Yeah, one of the capitalist raiders was wearing
he was wearing a Punisher shirt. That's right.
Yes. And people are now pointing out that Marvel hasn't published anything with the Punisher in quite some time. However, they canceled his last book because of the pandemic. There's been no appearance of the Punisher since then. And people are wondering, is Disney telling Marvel to keep the Punisher under wraps for now because of what happened? Or should they retire the logo? Because on the TV series, he wore the logo one time. On the Daredevil show, he wore it one time.
Yeah, but it's so iconic, though. For
not
his
Dolph Lundgren.
Yeah. That's actually a conversation that my husband and I had, was the fact that should something like a symbol like that be boycotted just because, someone decided to wear it to a riot? And it's like, they wore so many different random things thrown together, like made themselves look like Vikings. I think somebody even wore like Chief Indian feathers. So I don't think that we should look at it as like, hey, we need to boycott the Punisher. I don't think that's fair just because one person decided to wear that shirt. Right.
And the thing is that was brought up once in the chat that we have on Facebook with the host of these comic shows is something like Captain America, which stands for a symbol of everything that's good about the country. the Punisher is a gun-toting maniac, no matter how you look at him. Whether or not he's killing other bad people, what he does, and what those people were representing of violence and stuff like that is not great, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It does beg the question: what if it was like Batman, who does have Punisher-type antics? He doesn't kill, or he's not supposed to. Christopher Nolan, but I'm not going to save you, but I'm going to basically let you die.
The anti Batman.
I'm the goddamn Batman.
Justin says Space Ghost Rider says Frank Castle brought back to life by Odin as Ghost Rider in space.
I thought he was brought back by Galactus as his herald. The Cosmic Ghost Rider is, yes, Frank Castle from the future, but I thought it was Galactus.
Yeah.
Was it Odin?
Well, that's what Justin's saying.
That's interesting. I never read the Cosmic Ghost Rider. I read the one issue of it, and I was like, okay, so he's basically Deadpool, but the Ghost Rider, because he acts like Deadpool more than he does Frank Castle. He was like hot for like 5 seconds, and then people have kind of stopped caring about the Cosmic Ghost Rider, aka that version of the Punisher. If you want to read a really good Punisher story, read Garth Ennis's Welcome Back, Frank.
To take a step back, what we were talking about earlier about the his symbol, I think it would be smart for Disney to lay low on Punisher for a while. I think it's crazy to boycott it, but you definitely ruffle a lot of people's feathers, and just lay low for a while, and bring it back in about a year.
On the Spider-Man animated series, the Punisher was on that show, but he wore like a green costume, not black for whatever reason. And Microchip, his sidekick, was constantly saying, "Can we use like non-lethal methods, Frank?" And he's like, "Okay, just this one time because of this episode, because it's a kid's cartoon. I won't kill this person." It's like when they had Carnage on. Robbie Robinson says, Cletus Cassidy, when he was just the serial killer, not yet the Carnage. Cletus Cassidy has done things that even the Washington Post won't print.
Oh.
And I'm like, and then you just see Carnage just slamming people around. I'm like, come on.
Where you take them out of their normal element.
Right. Which, you go back to the very first appearance of Carnage, and Spider-Man finds written on the wall, "Carnage rules," and he realizes that it's not written in the guard's blood because he never touched the guard. It's written in its own blood on the wall.
Ooh, wow. Well, that's dedication.
Yeah, which I'm like waiting for Woody Harrelson to like just cut his wrist open and smear on the wall, Brock sucks or something.
We may get it.
Yeah, there's a documentary, by the way, Keeping Alive with the Punisher, not to get too off topic. There's a guy trying to work on a documentary about the Punisher movie starring Dolph Lundgren, which, honestly, you rewatch that movie holds up, I think. Other than the fact he doesn't have the skull in his chest, and Thomas Jane and Ray Stevenson did, and the guy in the TV series. I think the Dolph Lundgren movie definitely holds up. I like the music. I like the idea of it. If you read the graphic novel adaptation of the movie, he does spray paint the skull onto his bulletproof vest when he goes in to save the mobster's son's life.
The second one was pretty good also. And Justin says it could have been Galactus, but he made a deal with Mephisto.
Yes, who's going to be played by Peter Fonda or Henry Fonda coming up on the next episode of WandaVision. Spoilers right here, people.
What? Hey, don't. Nah.
I think both of them are dead anyway. So.
Oh, jeez.
You almost caused a riot there, Chris.
Right. Do you want to hear what I think is going to happen on Falcon Winter Soldier?
Sure.
Okay, so on Falcon Winter Soldier, I think the real villain is going to be revealed to be behind all of the shenanigans of whatever the plot line is involving the Flag Smasher people and Zemo's people, which I think are the same terrorist organization. I think what they're going to reveal is, in fact, the Red Skull has returned in a clone body of Steve Rogers, and the Black Widow has taken his place on Mordor. Why do I say this? Because that's what happened in the comic book.
Ooh.
So it
Captain
could be
America
a
had to give up.
possibility.
Captain America had to give up being Steve had to give up being Captain America because the government said to him, Mr. Rogers, Captain Rogers, you do not own Captain America. We do. So you have two choices. You either comply or you give up your shield. And Steve was like, okay, I give up the shield. I'm not doing whatever your stupid crap is you want me to do. So they found another blonde-haired, blue-eyed poster child named John Walker to soup up with super soldier serum and become the new Captain America. But he ended up turning into a psychopath. And by the way, the whole plot line of getting Steve to do something that wasn't quite ethical and American was orchestrated by, revealed to be, the Red Skull alive and well in a clone body of Steve Rogers.
That's crazy.
Now, I know there's some differences in this. If you saw Endgame, you know what happened to Steve Rogers. We're not going to spoil it. If you haven't seen it, the movie's 2 years old, so you should have seen it by now. And they will go into it most likely in the first episode of Falcon Winter Soldier at least some point. But I think that could be a possibility. Who knows? So,
well, I thought, didn't they say Chris Evans is coming back to play Cap?
Wouldn't that be a big twist if it's revealed he is the cloned Red Skull?
That would push that. Yeah, that would be
Here's this.
interesting.
How about this? They backdoor in a way for Steve to come back and be young again by him dying and the Red Skull kidnapping him on some future Marvel project, giving him a blood transfusion, and him renewing his super chiseled Chris Evans body into his young self. Do you think I'm going way too far off?
I think you're going way too far off. I think more realistically, it's probably going to be a Cap in like the 40s or 30s. You know, him during that time frame. It'll probably be like a Disney Plus series. That'd be my
most worthless superhero of all time. Now that he went back in time and he's aware of all the events that have happened. JFK, Martin Luther King, 9/11. Thanks, Cap, so much.
Well, they're going to throw in the caveat of, you can't change history. Otherwise, something, or maybe he does try to do something and it goes horribly wrong and he learns a lesson from that. I watched a video today where they were speculating if that does happen and you do get the multiverse, allowing mutants and everything, it could bring in, during that time frame, Magneto and Logan.
We'll see. I think that's a huge leap ahead based on one little thing that we saw. So we got 3 episodes left. So,
well, I mean, that's the fun thing about, all this is speculating,
Well, I can't wait for that week's episode of Splash Pages, the week that both the Snyder Cut and Falcon Winter Soldier episode 1 come out. Both one day after the other.
Yeah.
That's reminiscent of 2016 when Batman versus Superman came out 2 months prior of Civil War.
I know you're hating on the Snyder Cut, but I'm excited for it.
Oh,
God. What about you, Sharcy?
I was going to say, I'm just getting into figuring out which comics I want to start delving into, and obviously trying to catch up with the shows and everything. And I don't have a clue what direction they want to go. Because, I mean, now that Disney owns them, it's how the possibilities are endless. Because what they've done for the Star Wars verse now is just, well, insane. So it will be great to see what they end up doing with it.
Definitely. Next week, issue 141 of Spectacular Spider-Man is the first issue of Spectacular Spider-Man I ever read as a kid. I didn't know who the Punisher was. I didn't know what this comic book was. I just knew it was another Spider-Man comic book for me to read, and it has the Punisher on the right there. Don't mess with the Punisher. I didn't understand anything in this, and boy, it has a cliffhanger ending that if you read as a kid, we won't spoil right now. But if you read this issue, the cliffhanger ending makes really can pull at your heartstrings because it's like oh my God, what does this mean? You know what I mean? Especially when Tombstone decides to pay someone a visit for information about that cassette tape.
Oh.
Yes. So
one of those.
Yeah, definitely. But this episode will be up on iTunes next week, and you can find Charcy and I on what's our famous podcast, Charcy?
Goth Girl Horror, the /podcast.
Right, and we got a new episode coming out next week as well. I think it's the Ava, Daughter of Darkness, Daughter of Dracula crossover. Last 2 parts.
3 and 4. Yep.
3 and 4, and Charcy and I will do a movie watch with people coming up soon when we pick a slasher movie. So stay tuned for that.
I still say Hatchet could be a good one, considering we're coming up to the Victor Crowley issue.
Yeah, definitely. We'll see about maybe possibly having somebody connected to Hatchet on the show. We'll have to see.
Fingers crossed.
Yes, definitely. At the very least, hopefully the artist of the book on the show. So
yes.
But that's all the time we have here on the Spectacular Spider-Man Sal Buscema era podcast. Thank you, everyone. We got another guest coming up in a few weeks. We got a few guests coming up, one of which is from the Clone Saga podcast. They just wrapped up their run of the entire Spider-Man Clone Saga. They'll be on with us for the 2-part Clone Saga issues the Spectacular Spider-Man runs into with the High Evolutionary War and issue 149 featuring the return of Carrion. So thank you, Charcy, for joining us.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Very cool. Well, we'll catch you guys later. Bye.
Have a good one.